And welcome. We have finally hit the Parker 61 where I've teased it and mentioned it, and finally it's here after all these like interludes. So stretched out in front of you, I have quite a variety of Parker 61s, and let me see if I can go through them a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to do all these for the video, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a look of, you know, some of the options that they had. And I believe these are all fairly early, maybe late 50s, early 60s, because they are all capillary fillers. Apparently, in all the ones that I had laying around, I could not find one of the later cartridge converter ones, but they exist. I just don't have one. So let me show you a few of the ones I do have, and I'm going to point out a couple things to be wary about some of these pens. Let's go left to right. So this is a nice Flighter model. It looks like it's the stainless steel, maybe it's Lestraloy. I'm not sure if they still called it Lestraloy, but it's the Flighter stainless steel kind of barrel, revealing the Teflon coated capillary filler. And you have your nice kind of Parker 51-esque hood, and of course the metal cap with a jewel on both the top and the bottom. So this one I'm going to go ahead and point out. I think there's another one, I think maybe this one, but just like I mentioned with the Parker 51s, I assume this will also be true with the Parker 21s. Yes, they are. These hoods with the plastic that they had, you know, the lucite and maybe some later versions of the plastic they used, is very prone to not only cracking but also shrinking. And I think this one, if I roll it, because I can feel it very distinctly as I roll my fingers down, but it is kind of undulating and warped. It's not smooth, so maybe try to see if you can, as I roll it, the unevenness, because I feel, yeah, right from here, because there's a connector here that kind of goes up between the two parts, so bottom part, top part, and it kind of steps off, and then it just kind of undulates as it gets to the tip. So hopefully this shows up a little bit better on the computer, on your screen, rather than on the camera that I'm looking through. But again, like I've mentioned and I showed with the Parker 51, be aware of the hood. So if you're buying these online, really try to zoom in. I mean, I don't know if people are going to describe these, but be aware. You can feel something a little undulating, a little bit shrunken and warped over time. But here's that as an example. This is another Flighter model. This is gold, but I think they tended to call these the Signet model. And just like the other one, this has black. And I can feel it on this one too. This one's a little bit more shrunk. Maybe you can see right here, there's a little bit, you catch the change where it's shiny, and then you get it in the right light, you get a little darkness here, a little darkness here. So those are where it's kind of undulating. I mean, overall the functionality is still good if you can take these apart to do the cleaning, or I guess you don't even have to take these apart, because you can take off the back and flush these like crazy, and so maybe you don't even have to do anything in here. But this is going to be a complete video, so I will be taking off the hood of these just so you see what's going on inside. But an alternative way of doing this is just kind of omitting what I'm going to teach about this part and really just do the flushing that I'll show you and just take care of the cap and the body, to be honest. So a couple options there, and I'll kind of reiterate that at the end. Interesting. Oh, I wonder the threads of this one are not that so great. It feels like it's just kind of spinning. Oh, maybe this one has a little thread issue. I hadn't noticed that one. So here we have a black one with just gold filled cap, or roll gold cap, or gold filled. I think the clips were roll gold. These were gold filled. The caps themselves were gold filled, and this one has a little bit of a speckliness to it. So I wonder if I clean that up. I wonder if that's just dirt on it, but it looks like it has tarnish or maybe some plating loss. But there's that as an option. Here is another black one, and this is the rainbow cap. Apparently early on they were trying to do this rainbow cap design where they kind of mix different alloys, gold, silver, nickel, and things like that to kind of get this undulating pattern. But apparently it was super unreliable. They had a lot of caps that just not turn out, so it was a high investment for low reward. Even though it looked great, they eventually discontinued the rainbow line, and here's one example of it. And this one, this is a good hood. Boom. And there, of course, is the Parker 61 arrow. I forgot to mention on the other parts, but one of the complaints of the Parker 51, for some odd reason, was when they uncapped it, like, oh, where's the top? For some reason, there was some gripe about not being able to tell where the top and the bottom of the hood were, so people were like riding this way, even though, you know, I don't know if that's a super good thing to complain about, because just look at your pen for a second, like, oh, there's the point, there's my nib, and then just hold it. But the idea with this was inlaid arrow to tell you, hey, there's the top, there's your nib, so no issues. And we have a gray version and just gold cap. This one has the inlaid nib still there. What else? This is a nice blue turquoise one. I like this color. It's a little matte lustraloy finish, gold, roll gold clip, and the usual arrow and the body. And I will say, let's see if I can see if one's early or late. I'm going to point one thing out. Perfect. So just kind of getting ahead, but just showing things. See how wide this is? It's got kind of a concaveness to it. I mean, it's not really the cap catch, and I'll explain that in a second. But then we get to something like this. Ooh, and you see that's just a sliver, just a little bit of a hint to tell you, here's the hood, here's the barrel. This is a later generation, probably a Mark III, and this would probably be a Mark II. So one key difference to kind of put yourself earlier or later. And one thing I will say, let me bring back the black one, because I think that's where I noticed it. Maybe. See if I can get in the light to shine. So one of the difference between this and the Parker 51 is the way the cap comes on. So notice this is one of the later ones, and that's just the slim divider. So what is the cap really catching onto? Well, actually, it's the hood. You can feel it as you put it on. It gets tight onto the hood, so it's like a slip cap, not like a cap like the Parker 51 that has the clutch rings that kind of snap into place into this. And that's even the case with the second generation. You think, oh, that's going to be something where the cap catches. Nope, not at all. You put this on, it's already meeting resistance right there. So it's really sliding on the hood. So I think a lot of the times, and if you happen to have a crappy cap or it's getting worn, this is where you're going to see a lot of wear on this hood. So keep that in mind as well when you see these online. And then here's another example of the rainbow cap. This one comes out really nicely in this light. More of a silver and dark color. I'll do my research. When we come back and talk about some of the history, I'll see if I can tell you the different patterns, like what kind of color this one is compared to this one, where there's kind of gold ripple. Like, what's this one? What are they called? Don't know. We'll find out. And more of the same. So I'll go ahead and pop into this one. I brought this one out because this is cool. This is a desk pen, and I just like the styling. Not so much, I mean, yeah, sure, Parker 61, good, sleek, elegant. I just really like this mid-century modern kind of tailpiece to it. Taper down, flare back out, and screw, so it's still the capillary filler. But I just kind of like this one. So this is one I've been needing to repair, but I'll save that for another time. I don't have a base for it, so maybe I'll look around for that and wait to get one of those before I clean this up and maybe pass it on. But a cool little desk example. I like it. So let me set these to the side, and I will show you something that I already have pre-done. We have this guy, which, yeah, I'll just lay it out for you. I have a turquoise one I've undone. And you may be saying, wait, what happened to the red one that you flashed? Well, the red one had an accident. I dropped it. It was totally my fault. And the barrel wound up breaking and chipping. In fact, let me show you what I did just to be honest and upfront about it. I'm really actually kind of sad that this happened. Where is it? It was in the drawer right next to me. Oh, no, there it is. So here's one I flashed. And if I turn it, you'll see, yeah, another example of letting you know that this plastic not only warps, but it does get brittle and breaks very easily. And this is just a simple drop from my desk, and it just did this shattering thing, which sucks because I'd already pre-polished it so I could have it taken apart and just kind of show the mechanisms of everything. But I'll be on the lookout. You can find these parts on eBay fairly easily. You can find a hood or a barrel or maybe even a cap. So you can find pieces of these things around. So I think what I'll do, since I put in the effort, I kind of completed this guy, see if I can find another barrel to it and just kind of make it complete again. But here's the cap of that gold with the ripple. Turned out really nice. Now I'm touching getting it smudgy, but it's really nice how it catches the light. But so that is why we are going to do this blue turquoise one. So getting back to it, here's the barrel, here's the capillary filler. It's cased in its Teflon coated case. This is the collector, reminiscent of the Parker 51. It's a little bit different in design, a few notches here and there, and that's for nib seating purposes. But you'll notice that this is still in one piece, and they don't come out. They are actually, I think, divoted in. I don't know the right word, but there's a little punch that I saw on some others that here's a little rubber band right there that I think is covering it up, but I think these are punched into place, so these collectors do not come out. So everything's self-contained, and we'll get into the part of the mystery of the filler, which is why I think this doesn't come open. So back out. So barrel, capillary filler, you have your connector with this side coming up, this side going down, and that's, looks like this is going to be a thin little band. Yeah, as it comes up, we're just going to have the thin little band. It's not, actually, no, take it back. This is probably a second generation because it's got that little concave area into it. So, a little bit earlier in the lines. There's our connector. We have, it's going to stay, let's put it up like this. We have our feed. Long feed, classic channel running down, and I think this is lucite. This one has a little scoop out. It looks too clean to be a mess up. So I'm going to see the next one we take apart, because I'm going to get another one just kind of showing how I got the hoods and things off soaking, or not soaking. I think I'm going to choose it from these. We're going to see if this is consistent actually. I noticed that when I was like soaking this one. But here's the feed, and of course it would go down through the capillary filler. Note, and I think I'll have a surprise at the end. I'll be able to show you what's in this, but it slides all the way down, and of course you have your nib, which is another kind of conical tubular nib. And actually, I'll say it now, but these can actually be quite springy and flexible as compared to the Parker 51. You might not write and get the flex, but when you tune these up, some of these can be actually quite flexible. And on this nib, see if I can zoom in and focus, you're going to notice, where'd it go? Oh, I'm so sorry for this one. That was a bad idea. Okay, there it is. Hopefully you can see that right there. There's a little flange up there. That's a little bit different than the Parker 51 nib. And so if you'll notice, on here you have that notch and that notch. And feed alignment aside, you can put that down, and that little flange goes right into there. So they are self-seating nibs, and they kind of self-seat the depth get my fingernail, push it down a little bit. That's a bad example. Let's see. There we go. There we go. You can get that all the way down. Everything just kind of fixes itself to be a feed into the nib, and the nib into the collector. Brilliant. Alright, so let's take those back apart. Yeah, that's kind of a tight fit getting that feed back in. Nib, and of course the cap. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Cap jewel, barrel jewel, and these are on there. I mean, I've tried to apply a little heat and do my friction twisting, but that is on there, so I'm not going to try to damage it or do anything extra just to kind of take something off that doesn't need to come off necessarily. But I assume, because I've never actually had to take one off, that these would be just like the Parker 51s with the jewels where you can unscrew them. I tried to look in there. I'm not quite sure if I can actually see anything up in there to take care of. But, and then one more thing I'll say, and I think I could shut my light down there, but I'm not sure you could actually make it out. But be aware that in the bottom of the barrel, there is a little spring, and we'll see when we put this back together if that's doing anything in terms of keeping. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why this is spring loaded, but we'll see. We'll put it back together and we'll see if we can make it make sense as we put it back. But little spring, and it'll be in all of them actually. So let's put these aside, and let's pick out one that I think we'll do the taking apart method with. So let's do, I'm kind of curious about this guy. No, not you. This one with the kind of silver rainbow cap. Yeah. And let me just kind of take this one apart really quickly and just show you. So if you're not going to go into everything that we're about to do, one thing you could do, and that's why this cup's been sitting back here, as well as this cut off nasal aspirator for babies. So I think I showed this before with the Triumph nibs. So if you're not going to take everything apart, if you're happy with the way it looks, you don't need to do anything in here, you can just do your polishing, and then you're going to say, well, how am I going to clean this out? You're going to take your bulb. Let's see if I can adjust my camera. You can suck up some water. There's just soapy water. I didn't do any ammonia, just soapy water. And what you can do is stick that in there and squeeze. And there we go. Yeah, see that one? This has been used. Oh, kind of looks purpley. That's kind of nice. And you would just repeat this process until you can flush it clean and nothing else comes out. Ooh, there we go. That was quite the fill. Yeah, and then, you know, the final few I would do this without soap, but maybe this is going to help it come out. But if you want to do the pen as is, that's a good way to do it. Otherwise, even taken apart, now granted, this was a clean one because I've already kind of pre-done it. You can do the same no matter what. So I'll go ahead and re-rinse this one. But let me say, okay, set that aside actually. Let me say one or two more things, and then we're going to start taking the black one apart and see how we got from this to this side, okay? The headache you're going to have with these, if you're intent on getting the hoods off, these hoods are crazy hard to get off. There's probably an adhesive, the shrinkage over time, they are a pain. So there's a couple things you can do, and one of them I've actually, just to get this one apart, I adopted the newer method, one I kind of mentioned with the Parker 51. I was willing to give it a shot. But the simple thing is heat. You can soak and heat, and just hopefully over time you'll be able to twist this guy off. It'll be lefty loosey, righty tighty. And to say something else I've discovered as far as what I have in my toolbox, and dang it, is on the other counter. Let me take 5 seconds, I'll come right back. Is my Parker Vacuumatic tool, surprisingly, I was able to make use of this. It just kind of occurred to me that I was having a hard time really hanging on to this. And it's like, well, I have the Vacuumatic tool, does it happen to fit? Now, grant you, these are fairly coarse threads, and the things that I have are fairly finely threaded, but I was willing to give it a shot. And so if you have any other Vacuumatic tool where you might be able to make a vise kind of grip that'll thread different degrees of threading, I'll say it that way, that might be an option. Otherwise, you might just be stuck using this, grippers, anything where you can hold this firmly and do your lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. But I actually found that you can start a thread, just catch it. I'm not trying to over thread it, but it would help. And I could then hold it and turn. But just a gee whiz information if you happen to have a Vacuumatic tool or an adjustable kind of Vacuumatic tool. So something to think of. So I'll put that down, I'll put that up so it doesn't roll. And so what I did with this turquoise one, and I'm going to go ahead and do here just to make my life easier, is I got some water, put it in a cup. Let me see, exactly like one of these cups, and I filled it, you know, halfway so that when I submerged it, the water is really only coming up to here. And so I used that amount of water, and I heated it up for, in this particular cup, about a minute. So it was hot. I could put my finger in it for a few seconds, but it wasn't boiling, it wasn't too hot. It's kind of like getting into a hot tub, like, yeah, I could have left my finger in, but it was kind of hot. And so with the turquoise one, I let it soak and let it cool down. I tried it, I did it again, and only after 2 tries, this was heated up enough and it softened up any glue in here so that I was able to use my Vacuumatic tool, and it just came right off. So I think, having been willing to do that, you know, I think with the Parker 51, I was like, well, I'll use my dry heat. I wasn't quite sure, but as with the turquoise one, I had been heating. I did start with the heat, the hairdryer method, and I was like, you know, letting it stay longer and longer, really trying to do it. And I said, well, if I'm willing to put this much heat on it this often and extend the time, kind of push my limits, let me just try the wet method. And sure enough, it worked. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'll take it apart, flush it, so I'll kind of have 2 to take apart to repair at the same time, just for my own benefit. And we'll get them back together, and I will have a surprise at the end to kind of show you the inside of these capillary fillers. So I will do my soaking, and we'll come back, and I think I'll have everything polished up. I think might as well just do that, because my polishing method is not going to be anything new or surprising. But I will say that in terms of polishing and taping, I checked all my barrels. There's no imprints, but some of the models will have a 61 on the barrel. So double check that, make sure you're not going to go right over that and erase it. But for the most part, if there's a 61 on the ones I have, and does this have it? Yeah, there's a 61. You may have to take my word for it, but there's a 61 there. And what else does it say? It's actually hard to read with the rainbowing, but made in USA. I think I see a Parker, and I think I see a stamp in there. Yeah, without taking the loop. Let's see what the other one says. Yeah, maybe you can see the part. Can you see the 61 right there? Maybe if I kind of roll it, you'll get it in the light. Maybe. Yeah, maybe if you can see it there. So it's there, 61. I do see a Parker. I'm going to look over the camera, so sorry for if it gets out of focus. Parker 61, made in USA, 61. So the 61's on 2 sides, Parker and made in USA. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. So yeah, that's just one little thing about double check the barrel. And so I'm going to use a little bit of tape just to kind of protect my trim down here. And as far as this goes, I mean, it's just looking at it, this part is not really scuffed up at all. So I'm probably going to take a piece of tape just to cover up the arrow. Oops. just so I can go ahead and do my polishing and not have to be too particular about that. And this area I think will polish up well with just the plastic polishes. So, okay, going on 25 minutes. So let me do my soaking, get this apart, do my flushing. I'll do my polishing I'll go through the whole micro mesh from the 1500 to the 12,000. And then I will do my Novus polish for the plastic and anything metal, the caps. I'll do my Simichrome and we'll clean it up and we'll come back, put it together, learn a little bit of something and see how it writes. There we go. Alright, and here we are after a single soak, and lo and behold, this might be my new favorite method. It comes off, and that is, oh, that's what I want. So there we go. That's what we reveal. So I'm going to go and get everything apart. Let's go ahead and get this connector. I'll say, there we go. So some of these connectors I've seen, maybe it depends on, Mark 1, Mark 2, but are a little bit longer than neck. Actually bigger and all. So I think this is the Mark 2 with the little scooped out kind of ring. Definitely bigger overall. A little bit wider, definitely taller, and more of a neck that has no threads on it. And I do want you to make sure that when you get these apart, let's see, does this come off? This little collar at this little thing in the middle actually, yeah, maybe this one needs to soak a little bit, but they do come off. And I want you to realize and remember, if you do get it off, that the extra little bit, this, well, it's so much less on here, but the little bit of smooth metal that projects perpendicular to the thin rim points down, or whichever way you hold it, towards the wider section that goes into the barrel. So just remember that. Okay, so I have one more thing for us to look at. This is the little bonus thing I thought I would do. So I have my own little personal Signet 61 that I've had for a little bit now. And the cool thing about mine, once you take the hood off and expose everything, mine actually comes apart. And I don't know why this one does. It came to me this way, and rather tight collar. But mine, for some odd reason, does allow, ooh, don't make me a liar, there we go. It does allow my collector to come out. So I've got my feed and collector here, and let's see, yeah, that little scooped out part I noticed on one of the other feeds is also present on this. So maybe it's some kind of design feature that on the top there's a little bit of a, I don't know, scooped out part of the feed. Not sure what's going on there, but it's part of it. But if you see, it kind of pulled out the contents of the capillary filler. So if I show you what's in there, apparently this is some sheet plastic that was made by DuPont back in the day, and there are dimensions to this. Maybe I'll try to see if I can find it again. It's like 140 millimeters by something. But what you really see is this is just a thin sheet of plastic with a lot of perforations in it, so that when you, and this one has a bit of memory, so when I let it go, it's going to go back to where it was because it's been rolled up so long. And it maintains the inner diameter, so I'm going to be able to put this in and put my feed in. So this is all that's really making, just letting the ink soak in, not only between the layers that are rolled up against each other, but also within these little perforations. So that was the idea, and they tightly packed it into this little Teflon coated cylinder. Sorry, my nose is running today for some odd reason. And stuff it down in there, and I can go ahead and put my collector back on. I'm going to go ahead and do everything backwards, and I can put my feed in. Yep, I went right in without, I didn't hear or feel any of the plastic crunching up, so that was a good thing. and I can just put it back together. But that is what is inside of these capillary fillers, which were apparently at the time maybe as a trade secret, but they didn't tell anybody what was going on in there. But if I put mine back together, go that way. Oops. Oh, there's an example. So that little collar thing is separate from this little connector, and you'll see it'll only let itself go down so far before it butts up against the slightly larger threads of the barrel. So that's another way to kind of know where to put it. But larger threads downward, smaller threads upward. Do remember that if you wind up having this thing come off and you need to replace it. So larger down, thinner up, and also looks like the down one's a little bit more coarse maybe, but also the upward has, at least in some models, has this extra little neck on it. So I'm going to push it down, it'll seat, and yeah, let's do it this way. I'll just throw this back together real quick. And I'll show this other one. I've got the teal one off to the side so that we can actually put it in together. And mine, I've done enough to it so that luckily with all that glue and adhesive, it actually goes together pretty easily, and I don't have to struggle too much. So that's a benefit of me having worked on this a little bit. Yeah, so there we go. I can get it all back together. And actually, you know what, I haven't written with this one for a while, so let me actually give it a shot and see what I can do with it. So over here I do have the black one already kind of pre-assembled, and since this has not been in ink, or well, it's been in dirty ink, but it's not been used in quite a while, I put it in here and I'm gonna have it soaking. So might as well check mine as well. We'll see what happens. So I'll put them both in. Ooh, there's that collar I don't like. Can they both be in there at the same time maybe? Can they play nice? I'm gonna take that thing out. I don't like it. Inky fingers, I don't care. Let me take that out. Putting them both in there. There we go. And so I'm gonna let these probably soak for 20-30 minutes. Although if you're routinely using a pen, you can probably fill these in 30 seconds, a minute from what I've heard. So if they're ready to capillary action something up. But these have been soaked and wetted, so maybe there's some water, things have to be displaced, so this will definitely soak for a while. And let's go back and turn to a slower demonstration of putting one of these back together. Now again, sorry for all the sniffing. I don't know why I'm running so much today. But here are our pieces. Connector and capillary. We have our feed, we have our nib, and our hood, and we'll start there. So one good thing that's good, I actually, before I did all this, I just checked with my loop. It's going to be probably hard to tune these things within the pen, so definitely get it tuned up, aligned before you get it into the pen. But these actually, I checked both the black one and this one, and they look fantastic. I had to do nothing to them, so that was a bonus for me. But we're going to go ahead and kind of pre-align our feed and nib a little bit, and then I'm going to start sliding it into the collector, getting it wiggled into, there it goes, no resistance. And remember, I'm going to take the prong that's up top and align it with one of those notches. There you go, you see one of those? So I'm going to go ahead and try and align it and let it seat itself in there. Nib is seated, the feed, I'm just going to make sure it's pressed down using the pad of my thumb just to make sure it's all the way down in there, and you're done. I like it. So how are we going to get it in here? The beauty of this actually is, unlike the Parker 51 where you're screwing down the cap trying to figure out where this goes and trying to get everything aligned, the easy part with these is you really just push it through and almost self-aligns. You just kind of look over the top and you can twist a little bit, but it kind of self-seats, and that's beautiful. And you can take your connector, again, the extra bit downward towards the barrel, and I'm going to slide this up, and almost kind of like the Vacuumatic, you just want to turn this. I might grab this just to grab it without really trying to turn anything else within. So you're keeping the alignment of the nib with the hood and just turning the connector part. Let me double check. Still stationary, it's not moving. So that's good. And I'm just going to get it snug. I don't want to go too hard or too aggressive. And actually, if it felt too tight, I'd probably apply some heat just to kind of expand a little, just so turning it's easy. But this one actually turned fairly smoothly. But do be aware, if it's tight, use some heat, go slow. I'm not going to use any glue because I might want to get back in here, and this is tight enough. I don't think glue's gonna be necessary, and I might actually have put some silicone grease in here just to see if that will help me slide it in, but I got it in. It is securely in there now. Boom, boom, boom. And I can take from the barrel, slide it on, and I'm still not sure what the spring is doing because this actually feels pretty secure in there. I don't know why there needs to be this little spring back in here. So if anybody knows, send me a message and maybe I can share that in another video. But that is the put together Parker 61. So I'll lay this aside. I'll kind of keep this one clean since we're gonna go show the two that I have soaking over there. So I'll let those soak for about half an hour. And we'll come back. I'll have my little facts, some talking points about the 61, and we'll see how they write. So we'll be back in a bit. So I've had the pen soaking for a little bit, and I did do an extra thing just because I did happen to mention that it would take a while because there is rinse and water in the capillaries. So it kind of occurred to me that maybe I should just go ahead and push some of that out. So I used the nasal aspirator, the baby nasal aspirator, and put it on the end. And after it's been soaking, I still kind of pushed some ink through and put it back in. Did that a couple times just to kind of make sure that everything was saturated well with ink and not water ink. So I did do that. So hopefully this is not an unfair demonstration of it soaking. But let's go ahead and set them to the side. I'll set up my paper. And I don't know, let's see which one is available with a page. There we go. We'll just do that. And I'll adjust a little bit, but I'll show everything. And where is my, oh, actually, there we go. I had to grab my notes. I wrote some stuff down about the Parker 61. And I pretty much used Parker Pens, singular plural, parkerpens.net. There will be a link in the description box. But that's a pretty much good go-to site for everything and all things Parker. And looking around other places, it pretty much said the same thing. So this was a good go-to site for it. So what shall we do? Let's do the refurbished one first. Let's do the black one. There we go. You know, this one's pretty well Teflon coated, so I probably didn't have to. I probably could have just like let it drip off, but I'll talk about this in a second. Actually, the whole wiping issue. Not really an issue, I guess. But before we write, let me just do a little flashy show of the pen. And I'll wipe everything off because I've had my hands on it and it's been sitting. So let me take the sun cloth. Just one more quick polish. There we go. Hit that arrow. Why not? And we'll get the cap. This is it. Yep, yep, yep. We'll do a little wipe with the sun cloth as well. And let's take a little gander at it. So overall, I think it cleaned up pretty well. Let's see if we can catch that cap in some glare so you can see the kind of ripply pattern of this rainbow cap. Got the nice capsule on top. Nice Parker arrow, simple. The body and the hood, everything took the polish really well. I mean, this wasn't super beat up, but this one of the two, the turquoise and this one. This one had a little bit more scuffs on it, so I'm glad to see it came out really well. There's the nice arrow in all its glory. And then we have down here the bottom jewel. And overall, cleaned up wonderfully. Nice pen. So let me take a look at my notes, and I will write down a few things and kind of see how this guy operates. So hopefully me flushing through and this having soaked will start off well. All right, so let's go. Oh, there we go. It's picking up. Parker 61. Apparently it's the pen that fills itself. There we go. So this, of course, as you see, this is a hooded nib. So the idea of this, as the Parker 51 was, had been around, I think the Parker 51, what I say last time, came out about 1941, I think is what I said. January 1941, and so it'd been out for a while, and so they were always looking for the next pen, and people liked it. I mean, that was gangbusters. It was a super successful pen, so they kind of wanted to keep the same thing going. Let's keep the hooded thing, let's keep it streamlined, and see what the next big innovation is going to be. So apparently they took like 10 odd years, 10 plus years to develop this, plus 10 years, probably a little bit longer than that. But the idea was, and they even apparently played around with this with Parker 51, so there's maybe even like plans to make the Parker 51 a capillary filler, but they were basing this on just, natural capillary action which takes place in a feed, and that's what kind of wicks ink up anyway. So the idea was sound, but then how do you make it work? And apparently it took 10 years to figure out how to get the particular plastic, the polyethylene plastic, and how to contain it, and how to just kind of manufacture a pen that would be fairly consistent. Let's see, what else did I say? So just like the Parker 51, they kept the tubular but modified nib, and they kept the hood, so they kept it all very streamlined. Sorry, I'm still sniffing. I will say that as they were developing this pen, apparently there were quite a few prototypes kind of circling around the development of Parker at the time, and there's one that gets bandied about, and it was the Parker 71, and it almost came out, but I think once the 61 kind of took off, they just kind of nixed it. So apparently there are a few, maybe a couple hundred Parker 71s kind of floating around out there, and a couple like yeah, I think they look basically like this, but they'll say 71. So there's a couple out there, so be on the lookout. But once they finally got everything figured out, they released these guys in 1956. And the things that they did basically were to slim it out, streamline this guy a little bit. They made it look different than the Parker 51, I guess putting the jewels on it, making it a little bit more less round, updating the design, a little more, less sleek, modular, to maybe a little bit more mid-century modern-esque, I would say. And what else? And part of their goal, as they released it, was to have as few moving parts as possible. They wanted it to fill cleanly to kind of compete with the snorkel as well as the ballpoint pen. So the ballpoint pen was definitely up and coming at this point. You didn't have to get your fingers dirty. You could just switch out the cartridges, click it in, boom, you're done. So this was a big deal to them, and so that's why they spent so much time trying to figure out the capillary filling. And the other thing that they wanted to do, let me make a mention of the as few moving parts as possible, because they thought, well, great, if we can make it self-filling, minimal parts, the aftermarket repairs will be minimal, which would save them money, of course. So that was also a consideration. And like I said, they had the capillary filling material, which is a DuPont developed polyethylene material, which we unfolded and got to take a look at. And then the other thing that people, apparently people quibbled about this, and I'm not sure if I've ever made this mistake, but apparently people complained that if you had a Parker 51, which I still have a couple off camera, people would get confused and write with the wrong side of the pen. Somehow they thought like, which side is up, and I honestly don't know. Like maybe I'm just so used to thinking about the design and like making sure I see my tip and that I'm writing with a certain position, right? That I actually find that a silly complaint. But their idea was to put an arrow on the top, and initially it was going to be glued on. Maybe somebody thought, oh, it'll be easy, we'll just slap it on, we'll glue it on top. But there was one proponent, I forget the guy's name, I didn't write it down, but he was like, no, we're going to inlay this, we're going to make it classy, and thus it goes. So even though there's a big problem with these nibs coming out, not nibs, but these arrows coming out all the time anyway, like, well, I think I have a couple over there that just don't have their arrows, but imagine, they were saying that imagine if you would glue these suckers on, there would be no Parker 61s with arrows because they would just be chipped off. So that was the other consideration to kind of set it aside from the Parker 51. All right, so 1956 is the year, and they came out with quite a variety of models or kind of configurations of it. And there's a couple I'll mention, but there was the Heirloom, there was the Heritage, there was the Legacy, and what else? We have Custom, Deluxe, Classic, Standard, kind of things like that. But I mentioned these specifically, and I'm going to have to move some stuff because now you can't see, because these actually help designate some of the caps, and this actually let me know that maybe this particular one is, which one did I think it is? I think it is a Legacy. I think this is a Legacy, because a Legacy cap meant you had nickel and silver. The Heritage is silver and yellow gold. And then the Heirloom is, and I'd like to see this one actually, apparently it's green and pink gold. That'd be interesting to me. So I'm pretty sure this black one I'm writing with the cap, where it just kind of looks like silver on silver on silver, just rippling silver, I think this would be a Parker 61 Legacy. And of course, like I said before, these rainbow kind of caps were high failure rate, so they weren't exactly cost effective. So apparently, I think maybe these names, and please correct me if I'm wrong, maybe got applied later to just maybe patterns, or maybe they changed the variation, maybe nickel silver, or just maybe, I guess, patterns overall, or maybe these things even disappeared. I'm not quite sure, and it wasn't quite clear to me with that, but maybe I just read too fast. But they did, like in the 70s, start to discontinue a bunch of specific lines, so maybe these did go away sooner than later just because they didn't have the rainbow on it anymore. So what else did I write? Let us see. And of course, whatever caps you had with their filling, did I write it down? Gold filled, the clips are always rolled, so a good hefty gold or precious metal on them, so they kind of were hopefully resistant to brassing and wearing away. So hopefully overall well designed, and I guess money was really put into these caps to make them like a classy thing. Because if you made a well quality thing, a pen, maybe it would resist, people would get it instead of, I guess, a ballpoint pen, which, you know, as we know today, these things are just cheap. What else? I wrote down a couple names of things. I will say that the gold one that I'm about to write with, the insignia, also called a couple things. Why can I not write? Insignia, also called the jet flighter, not fighter, jet flighter, and then also called the Signet, which is what I think I called it earlier. Now I can't remember, but apparently 3 different names, interchangeable, so don't get confused. Insignia, Jet Fighter, Signet, all some kind of metal body, be it stainless steel, be it gold. So let's see. And then the next thing, and of course the thing that makes the Parker 61 the 61, other than the arrow on top, the capillary filler was phased out in 1969, and that's when it went to a cartridge converter. So if you ever see this, the C/C, the stroke, it's cartridge converter. That's what that stands for. And then what else do I write down? And it looks like, and towards the late 70s and early 80s, they were phasing out a bunch of models, such that 1983, the Parker 61 was kaput. It's gone, 1983. All right, what else do I have? And I think the issues that people tended to have with these pens, because apparently, look, mine wrote, it's been writing beautifully. The things that people wrote or were complained about were the things that Parker were worried about, and is one, you still had to wipe the cap filler. I mean, even though it's Teflon, as you can clearly see, sometimes the Teflon goes away, people try to open it, like it gets worn off, and you know, there's always a drop or something left, so the insides would get caked up. The capillary filler probably gets gunked up at the end. And the other thing that people do is people just don't take care of their things, right? So they didn't rinse and manage their pen, so it would be a lot of clogging issues. I mean, they recommended, I think I looked up the filling instructions, and they recommended cleaning it, like rinsing it every 3 months. If you Google how to fill capillary filler or how to fill Parker 61, one of the images it does bring up is the original package insert, and they recommend rinsing or cleaning, or at least dipping it freshly into ink, the ink you're using, about every 3 months, just to kind of get things softened up and moving again. And what else did I do? Oh, and of course, some of the later models had super tight-fitting caps for some odd reason. They really made an air-fitting caps, and you'd get a lot of scratches on the hood, and then of course some of them would actually ding and take out the arrows, and of course sometimes the arrows fell out of themselves, so you had this nice decorative piece that would fall out on its own. And that was a complaint for people. You're going to pay a lot of money and have the darn thing fall apart. So those were the big issues. But if I talk about this pen in particular, I think it looks fantastic. I think it's writing really well. It's actually really nice to write with so far. And what else? I do have it nice and handy. Let's take a look and do some measurements so people will get a sense of how big this thing is. And apparently over time, and maybe this will help, I don't have the measurements written down, but apparently over time they did kind of shrink it by a few millimeters. So not everything's going to be interchangeable. If you have an early model, a late model, there could be a couple little differences. But if we lay this down and we do some inches on the capped version, it looks like it's right about 5.5 inches. If we do it uncapped from nib, there we go, is about 4 and a little over 3/4, more like 7/8, 4 and 7/8, something like that. So definitely easy to hold in the hand. This is a good size pen, not super slender. It kind of bows out in the middle, so you get a little bit of gripping, just kind of contour, and I think I can write pretty comfortably with this. So not crunching up. You can work back on it a little bit if you're a far back one, so you can still accommodate, and look how much I can push forward, and plenty of room to go all around this. And this is a plastic, so it's, you know, material dependent. If you're a sweaty writer, maybe you'll start to slide, but just picking it up right now actually feels pretty good, so I can't complain about that. Can you post it? Super deep it goes, and it posts very securely. And just see what that does to the length. It puts it to about 5 3/4, so it goes super deep. It's barely adding any length to it at all. And it's actually kind of a nice sliding feel, so it's nice and tight. I wonder if that's what... Still don't know. I still don't know. Anyway, so let's see. I think that's about all I'm going to say about the size of it. I mean, see how long it takes to undo. 1 turn, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Yeah, almost 3 full turns to get that out. So that's pretty secure in my mind. I mean, I don't know why people gripe about like how quickly it is to cap or uncap thing. To me, that is the most insignificant thing. I'm never really sure what to make of that. But if I'm writing with this, it writes very smoothly. This is Rhodia paper. There's really no feedback, just a little bit of pen on paper feel. Like I feel it, I hear the sound, it's got a good sound, got a good feel, but this is not scratchy by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually quite pleasant. I like it. And being a tubular nib, I doubt we're going to get anything out of it, so just doing the lines. It seems about as fat wide as it is, I mean, sideways as it is up and down, and I'm not getting anything out of that. I wonder, I doubt there are any really flexible ones, maybe you can some springy nibs, but I'm not sure that these would ever really be flexi writers. But, you know, then again, if this is being marketed toward businessmen and professionals, probably like the Parker 51, you're not really looking for springy stuff. You're looking for business, right? Because ballpoint pens definitely are not flexy. They're not changing, so maybe at this point they're not worrying about the flex. Pretty dry. I mean, ink dependent, but I mean, a little bit of wetness, but nothing crazy. It's not laying down a super thick line. And what else? So far, as I've been writing with this, it's been keeping up. This capillary seems like it filled up pretty well, and I haven't had any skips. It didn't even hard start. Is it touchy? Yeah. It's just like the Parker 51, you're going to have to be aware. You know, that air is going to help you out, so keep that up top. So if you start rolling it, you're going to start losing it a little bit. Does it reverse right? Yeah, faintly, and it's a little scratchy doing it this way. Like I feel it starting to dig into the paper, so not a reverse writer, but overall a very good writer. On this paper, this is a very smooth pen, like tactile, not scratchy, smooth writer. And my only question would be, how long does this really kind of keep up? Like what is the volume of ink that can get soaked up in here into the collector, and just kind of what does this really hold and how long would it write? I do not know, but being a fine line, hopefully it'll write for quite a while. But I actually like this. This is a kind of a classy pen. Take this into the office, that'd be kind of nice. And let's go ahead and switch over to the Flighter. Oop, not that. Let me wipe off its back. Actually, let me show you. So, I mean, this has got some Teflon, but let's see if I'm just holding it up. You can kind of see the glare of it, and it's beaded up on it. And maybe if I tap it a little bit, no, it's still kind of beaded up. So I still kind of have to do a little wiping, but you know, it's not all over my nib. It's not in my section. So even if I'm saying, you know, screw it, I'm just going to put it in. I guess I could say it's a non-wiping pen, even though that's going to gunk up the inside of this. But anyway, I didn't even pay attention to how well this one kind of wicked off the filler. So let's see if this guy is going to do anything. Are you going to start for me? Give him a shake. See if I can get anything forward. Okay, maybe I'll give it a lick. Oh, maybe it did dry a little bit. Okay. Okay, I had to like wet it on my tongue. Let's see if it's gonna pick up. I guess the other thing you can do is I'll go ahead and dip it in the ink to see if it'll kind of soften some ink and get things flowing. So again, not ideal, and I wonder if this is an issue with it. They did say clogging, but does drying out happen with this one? Don't know, just because maybe the capillary fill is slow, or who knows, but it should still have that hooded microenvironment. So this is me dipping it and now wiping the tip, so there's going to be ink just regardless. So let's see how this writes as well. I mean, I think the measurements, let's just do a quick measurement just to see if it's at all different. 4 7/8. It's same uncapped, so I assume it's going to be the same no matter what. So let me just start writing. Oops. And this one does seem to have a little bit of a heavier line. This one's maybe more towards medium. So there are some nib variations just in what I have. But it is still very smooth on this Rhodia paper. Now, I'm writing, hopefully, let's see, I'm writing faster. Squiggles, squiggles. It's keeping up. So yeah, so maybe, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is now because it was dipped. I'd say it was just needed to be wetted. So actually, I think this pen is keeping up. And we'll do the downward lines. Nice full lines. I actually like this. This is definitely bold. About the same, horizontal and vertical. And yeah, ever so slight. I mean, you can get it because it's metal, so it'll bend. So I'm getting ever so slight, but this is not a flexi pen. It's not even a springy pen. But so far, it is a delightful pen. Okay. Crazy. That's awesome. I like these actually. I don't think I've really spent a lot of time using these guys. This guy picked right back up. And yeah, I am impressed actually. Now I have 2 inked up, so I might leave this one inked up because this is mine, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to take this one apart. I mean, I will, because if I'm not keeping it, I probably should do the right thing and make sure everything's clean, but I'll at least start with a flush. I can probably use my nasal aspirator, that baby thing, and really see if I can save any ink, you know, rather than flush it all out. I can probably just flush it back in here. So I guess a way to save your ink, if you're going to switch it out and rinse it out, you don't have to waste it. So another good reason to have a nasal aspirator. But Parker 61, that's a win in my book. I actually like it. I'll have to use it to see if I get annoyed with if it clogs on me, or really how much ink capacity, how long can I really write with these things? Don't know. So that'll be another good reason for me to keep this lighter inked up. But let's see. Let me get situated. And I'll put these back on display so you can take a look at them. There's a nice black one, there's the nice lighter, and here's the turquoise one that we had initially in this one. Yeah, uninked. So, oh yeah, let me show this guy. So this is probably a Listerloy cap. Oh, is that even an option? Let's see. I did not write all the cap options down, so maybe this is a Listerloy cap with a chromed clip. We have the nice cap jewel, matching the nice bottom jewel. The trim, I actually like the silverish trim with these, and seeing that we have the slightly scooped out like little hood barrel divider. There's a middle, I think Mark II version of it. And we have the nice, I assume that's also going to be a chrome, inlaid arrow. And we have the nice Teflon coating. Yeah, and you can see, I don't think I pointed this out, but part of this, the description of these is they have 3 holes. So 1, 2, and 3. So these are the holes. I'll say 3 holes at the bottom, and that's what they are. And apparently, if you see these uninked, and I don't know if my light's good enough, direct enough right now, but if you look in there, you'll see like a redness to it. It'll be red. I don't know if that's just a printing, something that wears it over time, but if it's nice, bright, like red, that's probably an uninked one. But always flush it, then you'll find out. So let's get these on display. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do next. Alright, so allow me to show you what I think I want to work on next, more of a project pen. And I'm going to lay the pieces down, because it is in pieces, and we'll see if you can guess it before I tell you what it is. That might give it away right there. And this barrel piece. So, if you don't know, at least not yet, this is an Eversharp Doric. This is the 2nd generation model. This is the cap with the full cap band. Oh, there you go. The full cap band, just to kind of prevent all those lip cracks and breakages that they were having with the 1st generation. So, I bought this as a parts pen. What I really wanted was this little piece right here, the packing unit, so that I could repair another one, because this one clearly is broken at the neck. There's no section to it. So I think on eBay I paid $50, $60 for it, somewhere in there with shipping, I think. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit too much, but you know, I got, you know, a cap, I have these pieces, so should more come my way, maybe I have some more pieces. So it seemed kind of worth it to me. But what I discovered, and I honestly don't think the person who sold it knew this, but when I took a look inside the cap, there was something in it, and come to find out, the section was really there the whole time. So the section and part of that cleanly broken off neck was still there, but the bonus, and why now I think this is a great deal, is it came with an adjustable nib, and this one even has the ink flow stopper, still kind of springy and working. So yeah, this is a number number 7. It's right there up on the tip of this little metal bracket that helps make it stiff as you extend it, or make it flexible as you pull it back. So I think now I had a wonderful deal. But seeing as how I have this complete pen, and when I approximated the top and bottom parts of the barrel, I found, let's see if I can find it, boom, they match up really well. This is such a clean break. There's no chips, there's nothing gouged out. It is really just 2 clean surfaces coming together. So what I thought I would do, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm still exactly where I am. I would try to solvent weld these things together, see if I can make it airtight, see if I can make myself a usable Eversharp Doric. And again, like, this will be my personal collection. I don't think I'd pass this on because of what I'm about to do to the barrel, but I imagine you guys can go on this journey with me. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it does, but at the very least I will have tried. I've gotten a project off my table, and I'll know my answer. So at the very least I have a cool nib, and I've got the part I wanted. So let's tune in next time, take a little bit of a break. I still have a few more filling systems to do, or at least variations of some old ones, and maybe some things that people don't see too often. What do I have? I have a hatchet filler. I think I have some swan twist fillers that I'm going to eventually do. I have some PFMs, and I even have a couple like syringe fillers that I want to try to see if I can recork and do some things with. So we still have some exploring to do before we kind of move on to just checking out cool pens and seeing what makes them great or makes them maybe not so great. But there's your teas, and these are the ones that we did today, or I guess for me over the course of 2 weeks. But there you go. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, do the usual things, and I'll see you next time.